welcome to this week's episode of the Mountain Grain Movie Podcast, a podcast where we watch a movie and then we talk about it. Resident lobotomy surgeon David checking in.
Hi, David, and I'm his victim, I think, listener, and you can tell that by listening back to the 300 episodes. Hold on, Dave, let me finish the line. You can tell that by going back and listening to the last 300 episodes of the podcast, and you think, yeah, that guy probably has been lobotomized, doesn't he? Considering all the shit he says. Get the line out, Dave. Hey, Dave, how are we doing? We're here to talk about a movie.
And nice, Sam.
Yes.
And I think we've actually done some pretty okay movies lately. Some pretty good movies overall lately. We're on a bit of a heater here. But is this the best movie we've done this year?
I think it might be. And I think it's one of those films that I've been aware of for a while and wanted to get into and never really found the.
It's like Hipster's thing, isn't it? Everyone keeps telling me to watch this amazing film. It can't possibly be that amazing.
Yeah, so I'm not going to. I'm going to refuse to because if they think no, but because I think it's one of the problems with. There's just so much to watch. There's so many films.
And
I can't.
And also, I think there's an aspect of the podcast kind of. Maybe we look back a lot, so we watch a lot of movies from the 1930s, and that maybe takes some of our focus from current movies, and that's what movies in the last 10 years. I think actually we've probably seen a relatively small number in comparison because we've been watching so many 40s and 50s and 60s and
70s and 90s movies as well.
Exactly.
That's all. But we have an apology to make to the listener. We have apologies, and
I'm not apologising. I didn't agree to this.
Yeah, not just for the usual shit you're coming out of, Dave, it's because we did an episode on 2017, the movies of 2017, and Dave, this movie came out in 2017, and we didn't even talk about it. And I mean, okay,
it was on my long list. And then for whatever reason, I didn't watch it. And we watched a lot of movies for that. Yeah,
we did. But the problem is that this is the best movie of 2017, by a staggeringly long way. And I haven't seen all of the movies of 2017. I've watched quite a few, and yet this is 100% the best movie because this is a fucking banger. This is one of those.
By the way, in case for our illiterate audience, is Get Out. From 2017.
Yes, in case you can't read the podcast title. And so, I think this is one of those movies that is going to be remembered for many, many years and is going to be a cultural marker for what the fuck was going on in 2017 and how is everyone feeling and is everyone all right? And the answer is not really. No, everything's going to shit, and just you wait because it's all coming to a head as well over the next few years.
Hey, we had a Trump presidency in 2017 as well, didn't we?
Yeah, he was a good one. He was a year into banning Muslims and horrible lot of shit as well. So good lord.
Trump 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Oh, God. So let's talk about Get Out. Let's get into this movie. And I think the most important thing for me here, the most important thing in terms of the plot and the beats that we go through is that this film is immaculately careful about how and when it drops the information about what's happening. But importantly, even what type of movie this is. Is this a satire? Is this a comedy movie? You could watch quite a lot of it and think.
I was listening to some a different podcast about this, doing my homework, and one of the guests was like, "Oh yeah, this real life documentary about America." I was like, ooh.
about a black person going to a rich white family get together. Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, it really is.
Well, that's what this movie is at its core, isn't it? It's really interesting. I know that Jordan Peele's said that. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner was a bit of inspiration for this in terms of and I guess actually for me that's an important starting point is that this is a movie about black men specifically, for black men, about like the and it's an interesting one, really, isn't it? Because we see so many racist American Southerners and
the racist South Americans.
so them too.
Fuck you, Brazil. Oh no, the other ones, the Southern
I was thinking
Americans.
of South Africans and the South Africans too. The South bad.
Take that,
But
Uruguay.
Specifically, I think this is a film about the way that the world treats this black guy. Specifically, not even based on his race as such, but more based on the fact that he's in an interracial relationship. I think so much of the movie is kind of like, the early half of the movie especially, is kind of like predicated on, it's not just the fact that they're uncomfortable around black people and odd and they're asking strange questions and being weird. It's kind of also kind of this judgment of like, why are you going out with a white woman, man? And Jordan Peele, of course, is married to Chelsea Peretti. So there's certainly an amount of like, and again, he said that there's drawing from kind of like some real life experience here of like, I think there is that stigma, the racial like tensions in America. And I think there's still a 1950s kind of view on interracial relationships in America that I think this movie captures wonderfully. And again, we're white guys from England, so like, it's really nice to see this, and it kind of just do you know what I mean? Because it makes you check your own privilege. I've never walked down the street and, you know, worried that people are going to be judging me based on my appearance.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I mean, Dave, you probably should be. but that's unrelated.
Sam.
No. I'm saying that's unrelated. That's just your general appearance. That's what I'm talking about. The ragged beards and all that. No, but you're right. You're 100% right. And I think it is an important movie. It's an important, capital I, important movie, because I think what it gets to the reality of so many people's existence, you know, in the modern world, is that like, and not even a cabal of white conspiracists trying to steal black people's bodies. No, just the fact that all the way through the movie, Chris has to be like, it's fine, don't worry about it. I know what your family's like. I know what your dad's like. I know he means well.
The thing with the cop is the really
cops,
early I love how the movie transitions. So this is Chris. He's a black man going out with this white woman, going to see her family in like, is it supposed to be like upstate New York or something? It's like,
not the South. They've said they shot it in Alabama, but they've said it's not the South. They didn't want to go for like the Southern.
No, but that's another bit of brilliance, Sam, because what it is, these are Democrat voting, like, do you know what I mean? Children.
He would have voted for Obama.
These are the sort of people
time
who sit around a table and tell themselves how progressive they are.
Yeah.
And by kind of hanging a lantern on the inherent, learned, and everything else racism that these people have, by hanging a lantern on that, I think it actually is kind of like just, it's so much more realistic than the Lost Cause of the South racists that we see in other movies. You know.
This isn't the alt-right, is
those
it?
people. This is people who sit around a table with other white people and pat themselves on the back for giving to good causes and, you know, not being racist, when actually they're still exhibiting quite obviously, even again without the abducting people and doing brain surgery, abducting black people and doing brain surgery on them. Even without that, there's quite a lot of inherent.
Look how strong he is. You know,
exactly,
look at your physique, your genetics, all of this stuff. It's just
good brother, Jesus Christ. Yeah, like there's a lot of that.
Amazing. I think it's a really important point, and let's get into some of the story beats in a second. But I think the final point I'd make, and you've hinted at it already, is about self-reflection. And I'm really into this idea of self-reflection at the moment, that it's so critical to be constantly thinking about how you behave and how you act and the things that you think about and the way that you think about things. I think it's really important. And this film made me realize as well, I think, is that you need external stimulus to help you do that. Like you can be as self-reflective as you like, but there's that great quote about unknown unknowns. You know, there's things you just don't know about. There's things that you just cannot imagine, and I think this movie acts to me as like a great sense of these are things I should be thinking about. These are small little things that we should constantly be kind of checking ourselves to make sure we go, oh yeah, I don't want to be this guy. I don't want to be this woman's dad. Like yeah, okay, I voted for Obama. That makes me a friend of black people. This is his attitude. He's like, and
What's
he's like,
the actual line?
yeah, bro.
I would have voted for Obama a third time.
A third time.
And the only thing that's prompted you saying that is the fact that this man happens to be black.
Exactly.
And
it's like, what's the connection other than the color of his skin or his ethnicity?
The dad mentions Jesse Owens in the Olympics, and
yes.
it's like I know that you're obviously digging really deep into your cultural knowledge of black people.
Yeah, like name 5 I really
black
like people
rap.
Right now.
How's that?
Yeah.
I love reggae.
What about that James Earl Jones? Like it's the cringiness and so it's
Darth Vader is something of a role model. I'm not a racist. Like
it's so cringy because you can imagine this is based on real conversations, and so again it's about, I think this movie is a great stimulus for self-reflection because it's kind of just, it takes you into a world of a real just, God, this must be so fucking awkward all the time, having to deal with these stupid white people who just cannot.
Daniel Kaluuya is Chris. It's really chill about it, like generally throughout
because
a lot of the early part of this movie. Because also like he's so used to it. He's so used to having to like King apologize to white people that he's. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm black, and that makes things awkward. I'm terribly sorry. Like. It really is,
and he just wants to go to the shops and buy something, like and he bumps into someone who makes it, and like fuck it, just the constant exhaust, and so all this stuff is like, it's helpful. It's helpful for us stupid white people just get over us, figure it out, sort yourself out, self-reflect.
Well, it's good filmmaking. I think at its core, I would say that's even. Again, it's a movie and making a movie that's interesting to watch and fun to watch and thought-provoking, like you say, and makes you check your privilege and things like that is also really important. But at its core, I guess, like, it really adds to the authenticity of this movie and adds to what makes it so scary, like institutionally scary in the beginning, because of the way that largely white people treat Chris as he encounters them. And obviously then lurching into the true horror of, which I think is less scary actually because it's so much more fictionalized than the reality that we see in the early part of the movie.
Yeah, although I would also say that this clearly makes references to the physical horror, the physical terror that black people in America have suffered as well. And I think, like, I'm reading a book about J. Edgar Hoover at the moment because I'm cool. And he was the director of the FBI for 1,000 years, and he the first year with no lynchings of African Americans in America was 1955, which is a staggeringly late year. I mean, we really are just it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that it took until that point for us to.
Well, America has such a. And obviously the Black Lives Matter thing in recent years has kind of highlighted the bum deal that black people and minorities in general in America get from the police and from politicians and just generally the disadvantages that they have in society, American society specifically, are kind of phenomenal, and it's so accepted. And obviously if you had to live in that, you just go along to get along. Like the majority of people, like Chris in this movie, just nod and smile and, you voted for Obama. Great.
Good for you.
That's fantastic. All of us black people love Obama. Great.
Yeah, universally. But it's that real. I think the real body horror that this movie turns into at the end really does stem from something that is truly horrific and has a pretty fairly recent history. Now again. There's probably a much better podcast to cover the deep issues of post-segregation America, but I think
But let's
name.
retreat back to our safe place, Sam, and let's talk about movies.
Let's
'Cause there is
talk about
something
the
we know,
movie.
and
because-
it's not race, and it's not anything about being black. Because what do we know? But we know
Because holy
movies.
shit, this movie can make us think and talk about these things, and that is effing genius. It's absolutely genius. So let's go through the plot. Where do you want to begin, Dave? What's the kind of opening for this? I'm
I'm gonna be mad here, and let's begin at the beginning.
Crazy, go
crazy, mad. So the movie opens on. What you find the names of characters, Sam, while I vamp. On the abduction
Chris?
of no, not Chris. I think it's Andre. On the abduction of a black man off the streets, he gets bundled into a car and driven away. Is the very first scene of the movie.
Yes, Andre. Yeah,
Andre, and we meet him later because he's kidnapped, and there's a term for the Stepford wiving, the surgery that they're doing to basically put these old white people brains in these abducted people's bodies.
yeah.
So we meet Andre later, and that's the first scene that we see, which I find interesting. And let's talk about the horror genre for a second here, because there's not a long bit on this scene. We look at films like Halloween or Scream, and those sorts of movies are so predicated on violence against women, which is another thing that we don't feel qualified to talk about at length. But obviously, the movies are so predicated on, a woman walking down the street and she's nervous because she's a woman walking down the street, and historically that's not a great place to be. And the opening scene of this movie does the same thing, but with a black man. Is that, again, as a white man, I can more or less stroll Boulder's Brass anywhere I goddamn please. And historically, white men have done that wherever they goddamn pleased. This is mine now. I own this, and I own all of these people around it.
This continent is mine. I'm going to claim it. It is mine. And then that is how it works.
And actually, that's been really great for white people. It's worked so much. Anyway, so the opening scene of the movie kind of presents. It's interesting, isn't it? That violence against women, which we see in, say, Scream, with Sidney Prescott, and ultimately, like the killer being a man and stalking her and things like that. Scary, right? And this movie does the same thing, but with a black man. And kind of that's the first time that the movie's kind of like, actually, yeah, you do. It is a bit scary being a person of color in America.
Yeah,
because you're not just scared of like people in scream masks who are going to murder you, but the police might drive past and murder you for almost no reason. Like, there's a real element to that. And then, of course, in this scene, which I'm likening to the screen opening, the cold open with the kill, like, obviously it goes horribly, and he's kidnapped and driven away, and it's like, oh, that's weird, and we don't get anything else on it.
Yeah.
I thought it was
how important do you think this scene is? Because I think I was thinking about whether or not this should be in the movie, because number one, it kind of gives you a steer as to what type of movie this is. It says straight away, this is some dark shit. Like, this is going to be a murdery movie.
It's
and I'm wondering,
a statement of intent, I think.
It is, and how clever.
This is a horror movie, but forget about that for a minute, because we're gonna now do the boring, not boring, but we're gonna do the build up.
We're gonna do the nice stuff, and it's like, oh,
like
look
I said
at
about the Scream thing, Sam. It's the statement of intent, and then you can have 20 minutes, half an hour of like plodding world building, which we do in this movie as well. Because we've established that, don't worry guys, we're going to murder some people later. It's fine. It's a horror movie. It's a scary movie. It's fine.
Yeah. I think that statement of intent is really clever. I really like that as a phrasing of it, because it's
part of why the filmmaking in this is so tight, is because there's very little dialogue in this scene. We don't really know who Andre is until later on, and it's not really relevant. It's just, this is a scene where a black man suffers violence against him, and that's kind of all we need to know, really.
Yeah, and then we get introduced to the main characters. Daniel Kaluuya plays Chris Washington, and Alison Williams plays Rose Armitage. And they've got this very kind of city, like he's an artist, he's a photographer, and I'm envious of their surroundings, because they live in an adult house. There's no toys anywhere,
and they don't have children. You chose to have children, Sam.
There's no handprints. Yeah, but I chose to have children, but I can still complain about it, right? Fuck you. There's no handprints on the walls. Like it's a proper, and you think, cool. These are like cool people. This is cool people, and they're obviously really into each other, cool couple. And I like the way they talk to each other as well. I think they communicate really well in terms of like, oh, I'm feeling a bit nervous about this, and she's like, oh yeah, but my dad, like, they're clearly on the same page. They're working together, a nice couple, and you think, this is great. Like, oh no, what's going to happen? Like, you're put at ease by them as characters, and at the same time,
I think Alison
because of
Williams
that statement
is really
of
good in
intent.
this movie,
She is excellent. She's really,
like,
really.
Although I will say that nobody is as good an actor as this character is.
Yeah. Yes. That's a really yeah. We can, as we go through the rest of the movie, there's some really standout scenes for Alison Williams, but Daniel Kaluuya, I think, has obviously the most heavy lifting to do. He's got the.
Do you think?
I think there's a very, very subtle. Very subtle. Hold on. Let me say why at least. There's a very subtle.
Get on with it.
There's a very subtle, Dave, performance from him that is all about him having to suppress what he's actually feeling and the emotions that are there because that's his job. That's what he has to do. He has to be, number one, he has to be the charming boyfriend for this obviously very nice family that he's going into, but also he needs to be fucking quiet and not let the microaggressions either affect him or let even his girlfriend see that they're affecting him because of this constant barrage of yes, I know I am an African American. Thank you very much for making every single.
Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah.
And so I think his performance is absolutely brilliant because all the way through the movie you can see that, and where it breaks is when he's phoning his friend. And I want to really make sure we come back to the phone the friend thing because I think it is one of the pure genius filmmaking.
It's an important part of this movie, and I agree. I think that I think Daniel Kaluuya is excellent in this movie. Don't get me wrong, but I also think that it's quite a passive performance for all the reasons you've just said, really. And I think it's to the benefit of the movie. His friend, played by.
Lil Harry,
yeah.
by the TSA agent, yeah.
TSA. I was listening to a podcast earlier, and obviously the TSA is a very American thing, but
security theatre.
They're almost never portrayed like well in a movie, and
no, they're losers. They're losers.
This verges on a positive portrayal of the TSA. But I think he represents an important part of this movie. I think that. Do you not think the movie is kind of, and I think Jordan Peele's doing this quite intentionally, is that Chris is being targeted, obviously, for this abduction. Spoilers for this movie, I guess. For this abduction, not only because but I think because he's the right type of black person, and that's not something I'm saying. That's something I think the characters in this movie are saying, the white characters in this movie, because Chris is like, do you know what I mean? He's a young. He's in the arts.
I'll give you the word. And this is the classic word. He's so articulate, and it's such a loaded word that you get a lot of the time in how if a black man is described as articulate, it's almost like, oh, despite that. Despite the and you see this all the time. There's lots of kind of stuff about this that you can read about how people are portrayed, and especially black men are portrayed as not being
it's a really
intelligent.
Old stereotype, isn't it? And,
exactly.
But it's
and
also Lakeith Stanfield, who plays Andre, and we see him later on. There's a couple of drop lines about him being like a musician. So again, it's kind of like this. His mate Howry, who works for the TSA, he's probably not getting targeted.
Yeah, exactly. And the movie's very clear about that.
But I think it's such a wonderful, another layer on top of, again, these aren't the typical people that movies portray. These aren't neo-Nazi, people who are marching and waving flags and throwing bottles. These are the quote-unquote good white people. In their own minds, these are the people who voted for Obama and they would have voted for
a third time.
That's
a great line.
These are people who sit around the table, sniffing their own farts, telling themselves how great they are and how they make the world a better place, and they still have all these prejudices, and even in this, obviously there is a racial aspect to this. If they seem to only be kidnapping black people for reasons, obviously, but there's a choosiness there that kind of I don't know, a cleverer person would make that clearer, but yeah, it's certainly an extra layer to this movie. And again, I think Howie's a really important character to have in the movie, to have Chris be a little bit more honest with and a little bit more himself than he is around his white girlfriend or his white girlfriend's white family.
If we're going to go into it right now, I think this is a great. You mentioned Scream already, and I think the inclusion of the friend and the ability.
Scream had a black person in it, Sam. What wild alternative reality.
It's 1999, Dave. Are you off your tit? No,
1994.
Thank you. It's you mentioned Scream, and I think Scream is actually a really, really good a connection to this movie, because Scream is the postmodern, deconstructed version of a horror movie. And what I mean by that is that, if modernism is looking at the kind of the reality of it, the postmodernism is to take a step back and look at the insaneness of the reality, to really kind of like the meta-ness and to be deconstructing the media in a different way. And so I think this is a very, very postmodern movie, like Scream is, because all the way through the movie, through his TSA agent friend, we spend our time. He's like, they're gonna kill you. I've seen it. This is, we're literally.
They're gonna abduct you and turn you into a sex slave.
Yeah, they're reading out the tropes. That you would expect, just like in Scream, where they're like, well, no, it happens this way. First, they get the girl, then they get and they are literally, in Scream and in this movie, they are describing what you would expect to happen in the movie as the movie progresses. And I think it's again pure genius to have that in there, because number one, it gives you as the audience chance to kind of breathe a little bit and to like take in what's going on, because it is really weird. But they managed to misdirect you, I think, throughout the whole of most of the movie, unless you're my wife, who managed to get pretty much what was going on after about half an hour. Bizarre. How
much of that do you think is how to put a hat on this? How much is that the pretty girlfriend just totally bamboozled us, and we didn't question it for a second?
Oh, it's 100% that, David. Alison Williams is far too alluring for us to be like, hey, you don't say anything horrible against her. She's obviously that. Yeah, it's completely that. We're stupid. We're stupid men. And I think
the movie also does a really, really good job of kind of not keeping you guessing exactly, but literally, when they were like, she was looking for the car keys, and I was still like, oh well, they'll find that, and they'll get away. She's obviously been hypnotized too, and
I said
the turn, and I was like, oh fucking course. And do you know what? I wasn't angry. I was genuinely like, oh fucking, they had me, they got me, they got me, Sam.
5 fucking seconds before she took the car keys out of the thing, I was like, oh no, they've brainwashed her too. And Nicole's like, are you an idiot? She's clearly the most evil. And interestingly, I was reading that is in terms of self-reflection, that's us believing the pretty white girl more than we would believe another character. I mean, let's be really honest about this. This is our own biases
about the movie, certainly. And I was listening to I've told
she's
you,
pretty.
To a different podcast, and it was just women talking about that. and they were on about, and obviously they were saying like, "Oh, I fucking didn't trust this white bitch straight away," and I was like, "Well, I did. Well, that's say about me."
Because we're thick as shit. That's what.
Yeah,
That's the.
yeah.
So all the way through the movie, we've got the TSA friend who is basically giving us plot points and throwing stuff out there, and we are deconstructing the film as we're watching it to try and figure out what's going on. And then you've got the misdirection of the girlfriend, and obviously the family is sketch. The dad is like weird, but you kind of think, oh, maybe he's just Catherine Keener. Hold on, Catherine Keener as the mum. Amazing casting.
She's the scariest character in the movie.
She's fucking terrifying. And I tell you what, she's an actor that I think all the way through her, when you see her, she doesn't show up, loads. But when you see her in films, I think she makes such a great impact. She's in like The 40-Year-Old Virgin. That's one of the first films that I remember seeing her in. And she's just got this fucking edge. She's got this edge, which is great to her. And I think they employ that perfectly. And the performance is ice cold. It is steely. And it's like, and is some of this, is she really racist? Or is this, are you going to hurt my daughter? So there's like all these elements that are thrown around that you can't really pin down. And I think that's a great thing to have in your movie. Someone who.
It's another good misdirect from the movie, to be fair, because the way when you meet the family properly, and so the dad's kind of like, he's a bit too like, hey, did you realise that you're black? Let's talk about that. It's his whole thing. I think he's really good. And then you meet the brother, who is like psychotic, and the mum is kind of like in that bit the voice of reason to a certain extent, and like telling the husband to shut up when he's like really putting his foot in it, and telling the son off to behave himself, and like that's not appropriate, and up until the hypnotism scene, which is like, oh no, she's a supervillain. She's an actual supervillain from a Marvel movie, and she's somehow been transplanted into this movie with her magic, and she's a villain. And
it's amazing. It's
very well constructed, I think.
It's so
I
impressive.
thought the movie was going to be, when I first started watching it and you meet the dad and things, I was like, oh, they're going to be like, it's going to be like a, Wicker Man type thing. There's going to be like a sacrifice type situation, and he's been lured here under false pretenses, and they're going to meet. There's a clan aspect. I really thought the movie was going to go in that direction.
This is what I thought.
I thought, these guys, the party is going to be like, oh, they like to hunt black people or something, because we've seen that before, and I thought that's what the movie was going to be, and the way it's not, I think, is very clever, and the movie's obviously again really clever in establishing the hypnotism reasonably early. Like, we talk about it straight away. We're talking about the stopping smoking, and obviously we've all heard about hypnotism, stop smoking. So you're watching it as a viewer and thinking, well, that's bullshit, obviously. Like, it's fine. That's just a character building thing. And then we establish that the hypnotism is real and fucking terrifying. And that kind of opens a lot of possibilities, like we said, for the girlfriend not being a baddie. For what's going on with the gardener and the housekeeper. Like, we haven't even mentioned them.
Yeah, because that's an important part of the movie, isn't it? Is that throughout the film, the only other black characters that we see are servants. Basically, that's how they're portrayed. They're portrayed as
Marcus Henderson plays Walter the gardener, and Betty Gabriel plays Georgina, the housekeeper, and that's the grandma and the grandpa, as we find out at the end of the
spoilers.
movie.
Yeah, like that's which is genius. It's really, really, really clever, because there's almost like they straight away they feel there's something wrong with them, isn't it? Like the way that she's constantly flicking her hair, and the way that Walter's doing his midnight absolute ferocious charges. Like when he's running, it's like, oh my god, this is scary as shit.
Did you notice as well? I mean, obviously, like, hindsight's a bitch. They talk like old white people.
Yeah, they do.
Which is really clever from the beginning when Chris goes to talk to the gardener and be like, oh yeah, sorry about last night, man. It was a bit weird, wasn't it? And he's like, oh, hello, my good man. And he's talking in such a good piece of acting and direction and writing all the way through.
Yeah.
To be like, of course that's a fucking 80-year-old white man. Of course it is.
Yeah, and I think they hold their nerve. They hold their nerve on that. They don't give away all of the magic on how Georgina and Walter act. They're kind of a little bit reserved because these are two 80-year-old lobotomists who are like who are in on the plan. This was their thing all along, and so they know that they need to be. They need to pretend basically that they are actually black people, that they are the real people.
I mean, the implication seems to be that Georgina, the housekeeper, that not everything's right there, because that's what Chris keeps noticing, is that she's acting strange. She's just crying. There's crying, but she's not. Just the tears flowing, and the implication in the movie, and I think really cleverly, it's never addressed, and there's never like it didn't quite take. It's just like there are cracks in her visage that just aren't there with the other people who've been lobotomized, and that's what again adds to this, like, what the fuck is happening? Why is this housekeeper crying? Why is she dropping shit? Like, there's some tension here.
But Andre, when he gets introduced back in again, so this is the guy at the start who gets beaten up that we see the very, very start of the movie, and then he's talking like an old white guy too, my old bean, and it's just like, I think that's the point when the movie's playing its hand a little bit and gives us probably enough information.
Seems like a real party foul, by the way. I know that obviously, but like, maybe don't come to this party, guy, when we're honeypotting this other guy into being lobotomized.
I know,
maybe,
come on.
Maybe let's not have all the other stolen bodies turning up to the same party.
we could just be a little bit more clever next time, okay?
Like, it's a really important plot point. A really, really important bit of plot. However, the fact that also, like, all black people know each other, but he does know this guy.
which is a great little thing in the movie, isn't it? And it's like a great little acknowledgement of like, and the movie's like, yeah, all right, fine, come on.
He sends it to his TSA friend, and his TSA friend's like, I know this guy.
Yeah, and he knows his face. But yeah, there's so much real cleverness. There's so much real cleverness that runs through. And some of the things that I really appreciate is the way that, again, all the way through the movie, we're kind of hinting at what type of movie this is, but we never really confirm it. Not until I think probably the last 20 odd minutes or so, because at the start you think, okay, well, we just had an abduction, that's crazy, and then we go into like this relationship thing, and is it like just an awkward movie? Is it just going to be one of those awkward movies? And then we get into the kind of mystery part, which I really, really like. I loved not knowing what was going on, even if my bloody wife knew. And I love the whole like experience of going along and discovering it, and the movie kind of giving you these little morsels for you to figure out. And then we have a great phone call with his friend, and we're literally talking about some of the things that I'm thinking of. And the movie's like, it's not a sex thing. You're not going to be a sex slave, like, because obviously they wouldn't give that away. And all of that culminates to the point where we get the reveal at the party, and they go off. Alison and Chris go for a walk.
This is a perfect set piece.
Yeah.
So you've got the way that everyone treats Chris like he's a celebrity, and again, like, I voted for Obama. Sir, have you noticed that you're a black man? Again, I keep saying that, but that's basically the way these people.
It's basically the whole.
And but it's so based in truth of, like, spoiler. I don't live in a very culturally diverse area of the country, and I can imagine a lot of the people, probably myself included, where I live, being a bit awkward if there was suddenly a black guy there, because how do you act? And there's an element of that in this movie, and obviously these people are all like psychopaths involved in this weird lobotomy cult. But
yeah,
the way that they're treating Chris is very much like, hey, we don't know how to act around you, / they're all squeezing his muscles, asking him about his, like, you in good shape, and things like that.
Blacks in fashion is what one of them says.
Blacks in fashion, yeah.
Like, what?
And then he goes upstairs to make the phone call to his friend, and everyone in the house stops talking, because it's a whole act. And the first time I thought about the Stepford Wives, and just to be clear, I'm not talking about the reasonably well thought of 1970s movie, which I haven't seen. I'm talking about the 2000s Matthew Broderick movie, which is fucking trash. But it's the same plot. So The first time I thought about the Stepford Wives thing was when when he's talking to the gardener during the day. I had a real like Stepford Wivesy Invasion of the Body Snatchers type.
Yes.
Like ring 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 ring, and at this party it was the same again because Daniel Kaluuya leaves the room. The whole thing is about him, and therefore everything stops. It's like the holodeck. He's left, and everything just grinds to a halt. They're looking, what's going on? And I was like, on the one hand, again, guys, be more cool about this. Like, obviously he's gonna notice. Why has everyone stopped talking? That's weird. Like, but it's from a filmmaking perspective, it really ramps up the tension, the awkwardness, because at this point, apart from the kidnapping we see at the very beginning, we haven't really seen anything bad or any violence. We've seen like a lot of racial ineptitude and
that kidnapping at the
behavior.
beginning. But that kidnapping is, as you say, it's a statement of intent, really, really well put, and it's sat there in the back of our minds, going, yeah, but shit's gonna go down. So this is gonna get bad.
It sets the tone to make this stuff at the party seem like suspenseful in a threatening way.
Yeah.
And
then we get the auction.
Maybe would
then we get the silent
the auction is. By the way, the blind guy wins the silent auction. How's that fucking working? Stephen Root, by the way. I love seeing Stephen Root. I just watched
lovely little
Barry on Sky, which is great. You should watch it. He's a major character in that, and he's so much fun. And I enjoy Stephen Root. But again, the character kind of represents that, like, he's an art dealer, and he literally says to Daniel Kaluuya, he says like, "Oh, I literally don't see race because I'm blind." Literally, and it's like, I have loads of black friends. Honestly, like, I'm cool. I voted for Obama. I would have voted for Obama a third time. Like, every white guy in this movie is desperate to prove that they're not racist. Like, they bring out of the wallet. Oh, look at me, the picture of all my black friends. Like, I promise I'm not a racist.
Yeah. Because they don't want to scare him off. Because they're gonna they want his nice body to use later on.
Stephen Root wants his like artistic vision, and I was like, is that something that would survive almost his entire brain being scooped out? Stephen Root, like, yeah. I mean, okay, in the context of the movie, you don't question it too much.
There's a magic bean that that kind of, you have to believe this. You have to just believe, and then the movie's not.
It's the Stepford Wives thing. I think we should do the 70s Stepford Wives, because the story I think is really solid, and it's a similar idea, but that's about gender, whereas this is about race, and it's kind of like an interesting thing. But we meet Stephen Root, we have that awkward conversation with him, meet all the dinner guests, and then we have the flash, which is the
flash
when he takes the photo of Andre.
Oh yes,
and we have the titular line.
Yeah, where he's still there, isn't he? And this is the magic being I'm talking about. The fact that they're taking the brains and implanting them, and just have to believe that, but also that there are the spirit or some level of consciousness is still there. And that explains the tears. That explains the whole lot, and I think it's a genius. Again, just thinking about it from
it's
like
a clever
thematic...
MacGuffin, isn't it? It's a clever like.
Yeah, it certainly gives you, I think, everything that you need to believe what's going on, and that's all that matters, isn't it? The rules of the movie are clear, and it passes its own rules, so that's fine.
But it's scary. This is a scary moment of like.
This is.
He goes a bit mental and he just screams, like, he looks at Daniel Kaluuya and he's like, "Get out, get out!" And it's kind of like a. I don't know, it's just perfect culmination of everyone's like, "Oh my god," and "Oh, he's epileptic," and Daniel Kaluuya's like, that doesn't really look like much of epilepsy I've ever seen.
Yeah, and he's questioning, isn't he? And I think this is where the movie gets into the top gear, and we start to really progress towards the kind of final act, because there is lots of questioning, but at the same time, Alison is really. I keep calling her Alison. That's not the character's name, is it?
Rose.
That's the actor's name. Rose. Alison Williams' his character.
As usual,
really...
Sam, we've alternated, and I think I've got names wrong, but it's fine.
Keep up, listener. She's like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Well, I love you. Let's just go home then. And I'm like, she's so nice. Isn't she supportive? the stupidest men in the world watching this movie.
Sam, even when he's going through this is the one bit of the movie, by the way, sorry. When he goes into the cupboard and he finds the photos, it was the one bit of the movie where I was like, right, okay, I've accepted the lobotomy thing, I've accepted the consciousness thing, I've accepted all of the insane things that are happening, the blind guy winning the silent auction, I've accepted him somehow getting Daniel Kaluuya's, like, artistic vision. Anyway, I've accepted all of that, right? But the fact that these photos are just in a shoebox in the cupboard in the bedroom where he's staying was a bit like, you don't want to put them in like a locked room in the West Wing that no one ever goes in.
Hold on,
like
you've got an entire basement complex that you're lobotomizing people in. You don't have a spare room. You don't have a locked cupboard for this. Yeah, maybe.
And
you know what I thought
from a filmmaking point of view, I thought it's a really efficient way to get that information across, and to kind of establish that all the people we've seen are all ex-boyfriends and ex-girlfriends of Rose, to kind of like. But even then, my brain was like, "Oh no, she's been hypnotized too." Again,
yeah, I know,
because we're the stupidest people in the entire world.
Let's. What did we talk about at the beginning? Self-reflection. Let's be self-reflective and say that we do not. We are like, oh, the poor white girl. That's the perception. It's incredible. Isn't it? It's incredible how strong that is.
I hope these crazy kids get out of this okay.
I know, boy. She is never going to speak to her mum again. That's just terrible what they're doing.
I know, this is it. No Christmas cards, no nothing.
And this is why the movie's fucking genius, is because as we go, and there's lots of the point where it becomes a proper horror movie, I think, is when the cup, she's swirling the cup round and making that noise, which you can kind of almost imagine it.
I love that.
Imagine it, listener. It's genius.
I love that cup thing. That's good Foley work there, Sam. I love that cup thing as a motif in this movie.
The production values of this podcast, listener. You're so lucky to be here. You're so lucky to be able to listen to this.
If only we could see through a duplicitous white woman, which we can't. So that's our kryptonite, apparently. King, bit of cleavage and a smile, and we're not seeing anything.
Well, there we go.
At least we're aware of it, Sam. At least we're aware of it. So
self-reflection. So I
was going to say. So this is a scary scene because they're going down. He's going downstairs, and he's like, "I have had enough. Something's going on. This is weird. I do not feel safe." And this is something we're very, very used to seeing in horror movies from women. Again, the use of violence against women is very much a shorthand for, like, we can make it scary through visual language in a way that it wouldn't be as scary if it was a 6'5" man,
Yeah.
And this is very much Daniel Kaluuya is like, I do not feel safe. I need to get the fuck out of here. He still trusts Rose somehow. He's as bad as we are. And he goes downstairs, and the whole family's like trying to stop him, and he's like, give me the keys, and the scene gets louder and louder and louder, and she's crying. She's like, I can't find the keys, oh my god. And then it's like somebody just like flatlined the scene, and she goes, you didn't think I was going to give you these keys, did you? And the mum does the thing with the teacup, and I'm sat there like, this is a phenomenal point of the movie, and I think the absolute high point, I think, of the whole movie was building up to that one line of like, and again, obviously, if you're a woman or someone who isn't a fucking moron, this probably didn't catch you in quite the same way as it caught me and Sam.
No.
I just found this so effective.
It's exquisite is the only word. I think really this is as sharp as filmmaking that I've seen in a long time, in terms of being able to combine the thematic, combine the visuals and the situations and the comedy as well. This is a funny movie because, before we get to this point, or just, I can't remember if it's before or after, but around this point, we've also got the TSA friend who is interviewing with the police, and it's like a comedy sketch. It's because okay, thank you, sir.
Fuck the American police, by the way. I mean, obviously, I don't think ours are much better.
Fuck off.
But
I
he
know.
says, this guy's been missing for 6 months. He doesn't look very missing. You're like, I'm sorry, what's your job? He's
I
on the
know.
fucking board outside.
It's such and they bring in the okay, thank you, sir, thanks, that's really interesting. I'm just going to ask my colleagues to come in, and could you repeat the story to them? And then they just laugh at him. They just laugh at his face. And number one, it works in the context of the movie because what he is describing is a bit ridiculous. Like, it doesn't sound like this is
Totally ridiculous. Apart from the fact that it's true in this movie, Sam, it is ridiculous.
But also, Dave, and the slightly more sinister side is that is this not the experience of missing people who aren't cute white girls? You know, like, because if you're
they're very much is a Madeleine McCann factor, isn't there?
If you're a
That's
cute
somebody
white girl
who went missing fucking 20 years ago, and we are still obsessed with as a nation
it's insane
because she was a little blonde white girl.
You are going to get a front page of the Daily Mail. You're going to get, whereas the inequity of that in terms of this isn't an equal access to the nation's concern. Really, like, we don't really give a fuck. I
was reading the statistic, and it's the statistical missing persons in America. The sheer amount of the missing persons that are ethnic minorities is staggering. It's a lot more, obviously, and like you said, and it's just not publicised. And I'm including First Nations people in that as well. It's not just African Americans; it's First Nations people, it's Latinx people. Like the America just isn't concerned about in the way that they would be concerned if it was a white girl. Like that really is a huge, and it's such a weird thing to have like a bar for entry, like going missing. It's mad.
Because people's attention is finite, and and I guess the media's, but so either way. But again, this is a funny scene. This is a dose of humor that comes in the middle of this movie all the way through, and then we're back into the horror, which is now we're going to get the reveal. Now, even as stupid as I am, I had not.
Had you figured out at this point that Rose was a bad guy, Sam?
Well, interestingly,
so after she doesn't give him the car keys, had you figured it out?
I was still like,
I caught on then. I was like, I think she's in on this. I think she knows what's going on.
They added the scene I was reading. They added the scene where she's sat drinking milk, looking up basketball players. Fucking amazing. I mean, this is. I've had the time of my life, and she's sitting there drinking the milk.
Hannibal Lecter hasn't got shit on this.
Immaculately presented on this bed, just like she's with just having the best time of her life, eating popcorn or something. Just brilliant. I think it is so clever, and all of that I think is a real like. I think they probably need to just underline the fact that she's definitely in on it. Like, we really need to get that point clear that all of this entire family are fucking
What's the joke,
psychopaths.
Sam? I could fix her.
That's it. That's the joke. Well done.
But so we have the scene. Daniel Kaluuya's strapped to the chair. Do you reckon this is kind of like if you're a mad scientist conducting lobotomies, does everything have to be this like leather-backed 1920s kind of like?
Oh, it's plush. It's plush. I mean, I felt. I was like, wow, look at that. Look at the workmanship on that paneling. It's beautiful paneling. Fantastic. Amazing. I could get my head cut off there. It'd be great.
What do you think about the Stephen Root scene?
Where he's talking back.
I think. It's the villain monologue scene, which generally I think this movie handles it reasonably well. I think you kind of need it's as good a way as any to get across the information they want to get across to really get across the horror of what's going to happen and the fact that they've been doing this for however long or whatever. You get the video with the granddad. Being like, we've invented this thing where we have, and it's not specifically about black people in his film, but that's the implication.
Yeah, the future today, like it's really weird.
Yeah. Come back, Zinc.
Come back. I did feel I had just a slight little palpitation about this scene in which I felt like it was maybe leaning into the absurd, like maybe like 3% more than it needed to.
It's the most Stepford Wivesy bit of the movie, I think.
Which
I know you haven't seen that film, so all of this.
Yeah, but I know. The cultural osmosis and with the references. We talk about heightened reality a lot, don't we? And a lot of movies are playing up reality. They're going to turn everything up, and so we're going to make everything a bit weird, but it's okay. It's okay because if everything's a bit weird, it all works. And sometimes you might have a straight man character to kind of bounce that off and reflect.
You have the line from Stephen Root, don't you, of like that basically they think that if we both know what's going to happen, then it makes it more likely to take.
Yeah, I feel
it's fine. I enjoyed the scene. I enjoyed the information it gets across, and I found that it did heighten the terror you feel for Daniel Kaluuya's character. While at the same time, it's just the one bit of the movie where it's a bit like
it's the heightened reality is turned up just a little bit too high for me because I don't think we need it. I think we can have the scene where he's talking and saying, "I need your eyes, man. You're an artist, and I need them." And brilliant, nice callback to the character from 4. Excellent. But when we talk, I think probably the thing that I would get rid of is the video from the old guy. Say, "You're about to have your head cut off, but don't worry." Like, I'd maybe feel like that is just
you're saving a white person's life, or possibly just making them better at basketball, or whatever the fuck us white people say. So, I voted for Obama 3 times.
But I feel like that could be cut from the movie, and we wouldn't lose that much. It's the only thing.
No,
it's the only thing in a pristine movie that I'm like.
I liked it overall because I think it just gives us a beat. Just gives us a beat to kind of like.
It does build the tension.
Really, just to set in what is going to happen, and because it wouldn't make sense to keep Daniel Kaluuya a prisoner for days and days at this point. Like, so it kind of makes sense to have this be like this.
Yeah.
This is your downtime before we're going to have the end of the movie, which
talk about.
I love I love the simplicity
of
the end of the movie. I love the simplicity of like he manages to stop himself being hypnotized for the last time by stuffing his ears.
Genius!
Yeah, he manages to do that, right, and then he just fucking kills all these people.
Yeah,
and it's not difficult. We're not having like a Marvel punch fight. Like these fucking people are dead, and it's wonderful. I like the second fight with the brother.
Hold on. Give us let the movie breathe. Let the end of the movie breathe a minute, Dave, because each death is fantastic. Each death is fantastic. We get the dad getting impaled
on the moose antlers or whatever it is.
And I also, for some reason, I really really enjoy death scenes in. Surgeries, theatre, medical theatres.
Syndrome, yeah.
I really love. There's something about like the cleanness and pristineness, and then everything getting knocked over, and him on the floor writhing. It's great contrast. And the brother, he gets like brained, which is just brilliant as well, and he's like bleeding out the whole thing. The mom.
The look again. I think the mum's is my favourite death, not because it's particularly like, but he enters the room and they both like just for a beat. Again, fantastic filmmaking. They both look at the teacup and they both know the stakes. Yep, they both know the stakes and they rush for it, and he throws it on the floor and he fucking murders her, and it's cathartic in a way. And I love how quickly all of this happens, and I love how violent it is, and I love how, again, Chris doesn't struggle with any of this. This isn't Sidney Prescott being chased around by Ghostface for 45 minutes, which isn't a massive like slur on that movie because it's doing its own thing. But this is very much the decisiveness of like,
he's fucking
exactly what you think. The simplicity and just. There is something to be said for knowing what you're going to do and just doing it well, and just being like, right, we're gonna do this scene. It's going to be exactly what you think. This is the least revolutionary bit of the movie, I think, from a filmmaking point of view. Of like, we're going to have the finale, and he's going to kill all the bad guys.
But it's solid,
and do it well.
and especially we get the grandparents die, and he tries to save Georgina, but obviously she's gone. She's gone, and it's not there. Walter gets a moment of redemption where the actual person who is inside and says, let me do it. And I love Rose as being like this Terminator character who's just she's literally walking along like fucking Jason Bourne or something, just like she's brutal and brilliant.
She's the most evil person in this movie,
and this is the absolute confirmation. Finally, at the very end of the movie, with 5 minutes to go, oh, she's a bad guy.
Again, pretty
she's
sure
shooting him. That's bad, right?
I was pretty clear when the car key scene. I was like, oh, she's a bad guy. Anyway.
Oh, there we go. But what? Hold on, because what it goes back to the very start of the movie, and this is genius. This is genius filmmaking. Is that the very start of the movie we have the violence that's pretty brutal and unrelenting, and all the stuff that happens in that first short scene, and at the end of the movie we bookend it with a similar level of kind of horror movie violence. And I think this makes it, for me, it's one of the best horror movies I've ever seen in my life.
Do you know about the alternative endings?
I was looking about this, yeah, and
so
it's
the
whether or
ending
not
the ending we get, obviously, and again, let's just finish talking about this just quickly, is he decides not to kill Rose. He's going to kill her, and he steps away and decides he's not going to kill her. And then he turns around, and there's a police car coming down the lane. And then my first thought, I was like, "Oh my god,
shit.
It's the police!" And they're also we've established the police are the worst people, and not the worst, because obviously these people are worse, but nearly the second worst people in the world.
I think they've established that themselves, Dave. Yeah. To be fair, but
and
yes,
I think the alternative ending, the first one that Jordan Peele wrote, certainly, was that he kills Rose, and then the actual police arrive and arrest him, and then there's a final scene of him in prison, and his TSA friend visits him and says, "We've got to get you out, man. This is a travesty," and it's Chris being like, forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown. Basically being like, "Nah, I stopped. They're never going to do it again. But like, you can't fight the system. We're black men. What can we do?
Yeah.
In the face of a system which is set up to incarcerate us."
I mean, crushing ending.
That was the thought, and then obviously they went with a much more not happy ending exactly. Yeah. Well, they went and subverted that by having the door of the car open and it saying TSA on it, and it being his friend, and it'd be like, "Oh my god, thank God, someone's come to help this poor man."
We're the fucking TSA. Like,
again,
genius.
The most pro TSA movie ever made.
It's really clever. There's the great quote from him is that but yeah, basically, I can't find it exactly, but basically the fact that you see the police car, you have the dread of what's going to happen, and that's enough. Like, it's enough for you that let's give the audience just a little crumb of hope and positivity at the end that he's going to. But still, I mean, my brain was, oh my God, it's going to be the cop from the beginning who's going to turn up.
That, it's just going to be the cops. But that's something else the film does, I think. Again, we're white men. We don't necessarily see a police car and think, "Oh no, it's the police."
Shit. Yeah.
Right? Because we don't live in a system which is institutionalized like abuse of our entire race. And I think that so the movie does a really clever thing of knowing, like, and this was one of the most popular movies of that year, and certainly I think the best movie, and is an instant classic, 5-star movie. And what it does really, really well is for stupid white men like us, it takes the time to establish that the police are not your friends. In case you were any doubt, at the beginning of the movie, so at the end, when we see that police car, because not everyone thinks the police are bad. Most police are quite bad, but not everyone thinks that. That I think everyone who'd watched this movie saw that police car at the end and thought, "Oh, fucking hell, it's the police," and they're going to be. God.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I just think
They're going to see a black guy covered in blood and loads of dead white people, and they're going to go, well,
and
we're not even, we're just going to fucking shoot you. Like,
2
that's
plus
the end of
2
it.
equals 4.
In the context of the period that we live in, and the context that it was only 1968, I think, is when the Supreme Court made, discrimination based on race unconstitutional. 1968, Dave.
Yep.
Like
My mum was born that next year.
Exactly. Like we are really, really not that far away from that, and you can see that in the way that the race, the apparent post-racial world that we live in is maybe not as post as we as we're led to believe. So it's absolutely it's a potentially crushing ending. It could be so bleak, and I think I really appreciate from Jordan Peele. I appreciate just the scrap of hope, because it's a lovely, lovely, brilliant ending. It's funny again, and there's something here about the intersection between horror and comedy. That these things are. These two genres are very closely linked, I think, because it's all about timing. It's all about the jump. It's all about getting all these
as well.
And building up, exactly, and building up the tension or building up the joke and getting to the point where we're going to hit the punchline. And 10 out of 10. I can't, other than we're talking about 2 minutes.
I know we're wrapping up. There were 2 scenes we haven't mentioned that I just want to briefly. Don't give me the
hour
rolling
6
eye look.
Of this movie. Go.
No, number 1. There's one Asian guy at the party, and I was again having a bit of a read, and there's some fantastic things to read about online about the inclusion of this Asian character and the relationship to race that Asian Americans have, especially in the context of African Americans, and there's certain things going on there. Again, I'm not an expert, I don't know about it, but it's really interesting to go and read about, because I think that's why this character was inserted here. He also asked quite an incisive question to Chris, because he's the character who says, do you find that being a black man today gives you more advantages or more disadvantages? Now, it's interesting that they give this to the Asian character, but again, go and read up online, because I'm just going to make it sound abhorrent if I try and explain.
Google this. Do some work.
However, that question, I think, is again kind of hanging a lantern on how fake and ingrained these people's racism are. And there are people like this that exist. There was a woman who managed to get a university to cancel all affirmative action, basically because black women had more advantage in affirmative action than she did. But there's a thing in that scene where it's these people again believe they're not racist but even though they're asking that question, like, yes, there are all sorts of programs to help disadvantaged black people in America to achieve success. However, they're in place because of how disadvantaged black people in America are at achieving success. And as a white person or whatever, like, sitting there and thinking, God, I wish I had those advantages, without having the self-awareness to realize that, no, you already have all the advantages. Yeah. These things exist to try and bridge the gap. It's the same sort of attitude of, like, why should kids get free school meals, Sam?
Damn greedy kids.
Exactly.
That's what I say.
But again, it's checking the privilege. So that scene was really interesting. So that's more of a go and Google, because there's some really interesting dynamics going on in the racial relationships there. Mm-hmm. And the second scene I wanted to talk about was when Rose is talking to TSA friend on the phone. And it's one of the funniest bits of the movie, where he kind of says, oh, hold on a second. She goes, oh, I know this bitch is lying. My TSA tingle's going off. I'm going to start recording her. And he just says that to the camera, and it's fine. And it's funny. And we've established that this character just talks to himself like this, and it's fine. And he goes back on. But Rose, because she's an evil genius and the most evil person to ever have lived, is 2 steps ahead of him, and basically starts laying the groundwork for him being like a sexual predator on this phone. And then so he's like, oh fuck, the police are never, I'm a black man and she's a white woman, the police are never going to be on my side. So he just hangs up. And again, I think that all the things that are happening in this movie, in that scene, I think it's just so wonderfully packed in. and balanced, where it's actually mostly funny. It's a mostly funny scene, but it's also kind of scary. It's scary why the reasons it's funnier make it also quite scary as well.
And that sums up the entire movie, doesn't it? Because this is a movie about race in America in 2017. It's also a body horror, slasher movie with a mystery psychology element to it. It's also about just the social awkwardness of existence for many people who have to deal with all of this shit. Like, holy crap, you did this in 1 hour 40 minutes or whatever it is.
1 hour
like this.
no, it's not even that. It's 1 hour and 40 minutes.
It is amazing. It also made 255 million off a 4.5 million budget. And Dave, just to whet your appetite a little bit, we have 2 more movies directed by Jordan Peele, written, directed and produced by Jordan Peele. We've got Us, which is a psychological horror film, and we also have Nope, which is a science fiction horror film, and he's the triple threat on that one. So boy, oh boy, are we going to watch those pretty soon. I think let's find those movies, because this guy, this is his first movie, by the way. Jordan Peele's first movie was Get Out, and
it didn't win Best Picture.
I mean, I don't think it's anywhere near that world, is it? But what I do think it is, I think
it was nominated.
But I think it's definitely the best movie of 2017. I think it's definitely the best movie of 2017. And let's look back to our apology. We didn't cover it in our 2017 episode because we are stupid idiots who didn't watch this.
Again, checking our privilege, Sam. It's a horror movie, and we tend not to. Again, if you're a regular listener to the podcast,
the horror
we're
thing
very
is
scared of everything, and we tend to just be a bit more tentative with horror movies. And I did look at it, and it is the top of every list of best movies of 2017. I do remember, but it's a horror movie, and it's also like a horror movie about black people. And to be perfectly honest, owning my privilege and saying I was wrong, like, initially I was like, do I really want to be preached at? And again, that makes me look bad, and it should.
Yes. What's the key? What's the word of the day? That's not what
this movie is at all. This movie isn't preachy at all.
No,
and at its core, this is just a fantastically good movie.
It's entertaining, and it's fun, and it's engaging, and it's terrifying, and it's upsetting all in one. But what's the word? What's the word of the day, Dave? What's the word of the day? The word of the day is self-reflection.
Third term.
I think we'll leave it there. And
Sam, all I know is I can fix her.
I know.
I know she might kidnap people to turn them into like sex slaves, and I know that her whole family are like a bunch of psychopathic old white people. I can fix her.
You can do it, Dave. You can do it. I know you can. Self-reflection be damned.